For a long time, you were the easy name to blame, the silent target of a distorted narrative. Not because you were wrong, but because your presence made people uncomfortable. You carried something that could not be controlled, bought, or imitated, and that scared them. It was easier to shape perception than to face the truth you represented. It was more convenient to paint you as the villain than to admit their own corruption. The setup didn't start with evidence. It started with fear. Fear of your light, your peace, your firmness. So they created a story. They turned your calmness into a problem. They twisted your firmness into arrogance. They disguised envy as concern. And thus they launched a carefully constructed plot where the heroes hid behind masks. And you were the only one without disguise. But truth does not accept a life sentence. It may remain silent for a while, but it never stays quiet forever. Now it's pounding too loudly to be ignored. The masks have begun to fall. The characters are running from their own script. And ironically, those who once laughed at your pain now can't even look themselves in the eye in the mirror. This isn't about revenge. It's about spiritual recognition. About understanding that the exposure that came wasn't yours. It was theirs. You are not here by accident. You're here because you already sense this in your spirit. You survived the frame-up. And now it's time to understand why the whole world is disgusted by the truth that has finally come to light. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel now and activate notifications. This journey is just beginning. The story they told about you seemed too perfect to be questioned. The narrative was carefully crafted, rehearsed with precision, and applauded by a crowd thirsty for scandal. You were accused not with evidence, but with emotional performances. And the audience believed it. The problem is curtains always fall. And when they do, they reveal what was being hidden backstage. They built the image of heroes upon the ruins of your reputation. But the truth is, you were always the most upright person in the room. Their silence was loud. Their support was conditional. And their loyalty, just an act. With every veiled accusation, every calculated whisper, they weren't just trying to erase you. They were trying to promote themselves through your pain. But truth has a timer that cannot be manipulated. It waits. It watches. It matures. And when it decides to reveal itself, it doesn't need evidence. It brings back memory, vibration, and facts that no narrative can erase. The same stage they built to shame you is now in flames, consumed by the poorly sustained lies they put on display. The irony is cruel. The same people who laughed at your supposed fall now can't even look around without feeling sick. Not because you were avenged, but because their own conscience began to revolt. What was once entertainment has become exposure. What was once gossip has turned into confession. Every post they made, every comment they fueled, every lie they sustained, all of it has come back as spiritual evidence. Living, undeniable proof. Because time, when aligned with truth, does not forgive. It reveals who was genuine, who was masked, and who was merely a background actor on the stage of deceit. You were cast as the villain because it was convenient, because your presence, even in silence, confronted the falsehood they upheld. But while they used manipulation, you used silence. And now, what was once considered coldness has become glorious resilience. The world is watching and it can't unsee it. Today everyone is disgusted, not with you, but with the performance they themselves applauded. Because now, even those who didn't want to see are feeling in their spirit the bitter taste of deception. Their structure burned publicly, and you remain standing, intact. Not because you fought back, but because you resisted with integrity. They never accused you based on facts. They accused you based on their own reflection. Everything they said about you was, in truth, about themselves. Their anger. It was envy. Their judgment. Insecurity in disguise. Their concern. A performance to hide that the one who needed to be exposed wasn't you. It was them. Projection has always been hypocrisy's favorite hiding place. And they used it as a strategy. They called you manipulative while they were the ones pulling the strings behind the scenes. They said you were arrogant while feeding their own egos with the crowd's approval. They placed on you the weight of the very traits they couldn't stand to admit in themselves. The issue was never what you did. It was what you represented. Your firmness, your light, your authenticity. That made them uneasy. Because the more truthful you remained, the clearer it became that the falsehood came from them. And so, to avoid being confronted, they threw you to the wolves, hoping you would roar and confirm the character they invented. But you didn't react. You continued. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't beg. You simply walked on. And that unsettled them. Because what they feared most wasn't your response, it was your consistency. They wanted you to break, but you didn't. They expected scandal, and you gave them silent, unshakable presence instead. Today, everything they projected is coming back. The same words used to destroy you now sound like public self-confessions. The crowd that once believed them has started to wonder, were we cheering for the wrong character? And that doubt has turned into collective disgust. Because the body feels when it's been deceived. The soul feels when it's vibrated at the wrong frequency. What hurts now isn't just the truth. It's the time wasted believing the lie. The collective disgust isn't about you. It's about what they now see in themselves. They portrayed you as the villain because they lacked the courage to face their own reflection. But the frame they built around you has become a mirror. And now the reflection is demanding accountability. And you're still standing. Not with anger, but with peace. The truth, at last, didn't just cleanse you. It revealed them. They didn't incriminate you because you were weak. They incriminated you because you were too strong to be controlled. They didn't need evidence. They needed a believable enemy. And you, with your quiet light, your coherence, your natural impact, became the perfect target for the relief of their guilt. They needed a villain to justify their own shadows. It's easier to sleep at night when they convince themselves that pushing you away was the right thing to do. Easier to preserve the ego when they create a narrative in which you were the problem, the unstable one, the difficult one. But deep down, they knew. It was your truth that bothered them. It was your aligned spirit that confronted the chaos they cultivated in secret. You became the problem because they needed to believe that. It was too painful to face the fact that they had hurt someone who only wished them well. So they retold the story, adjusted the facts, created a version where they were the victims of a version of you that never existed. And they sold that as reality to the world. The cruelest part? It worked for a while. People believed. They looked at you with suspicion. They pulled away, judged, repeated the words of those who only wanted to conceal their own moral bankruptcy. And you remained silent, not because you couldn't defend yourself, but because you understood the truth doesn't compete. It endures. Now that farce is collapsing. The contradictions are showing. The stories no longer hold. And even those who once believed them are starting to see. The villain of the story was the one who looked most like a hero. The peace you carry today isn't fake. It has been forged. And their discomfort is not guilt. It's spiritual confrontation. They didn't destroy your reputation out of revenge. They did it because they couldn't stand the light you carried. But divine irony is such that the same light that disturbed them is now illuminating everything they tried to hide. The truth didn't come to take revenge. It came to heal. And part of healing is the exposure of what should never have been celebrated. Now that truth is shouting, those who once pointed fingers can no longer sustain their roles. What disgusts them isn't just the truth about you. It's the reflection that truth ignites inside them. And you, chosen one, are witnessing all of this without saying a word. Your presence has become a verdict. Your peace has become their condemnation. What you went through wasn't just injustice. It was a divine experiment. While you were the target, the world was being tested, not about you, but about itself. Because what we reveal when others are falling says more about us than it does about them. You were the canvas upon which people's true nature projected itself. Some walked away out of fear of getting involved. Others stayed silent, waiting to see who would win in the end. And there were those who drew near, not to comfort you, but to extract more details of your pain and spread it later, poisoned and disguised as concern. Everyone was being watched, not by you, but by heaven. God allowed the framing to show who was real, not for you, but so that you could be set apart. Because sometimes the separation you resist is the liberation you need. The setup they built against you didn't just purify you, it exposed them. Those who were loyal stayed. Those who lived in appearances disappeared. And those who were secretly against you finally showed their faces. You didn't lose people, they merely revealed themselves. Betrayal was the lens that magnified character. And now you look around with greater clarity. Those who stood with you without evidence, guided only by discernment, are beside you today. Because not everyone needs proof when their spirit is aligned. That's why the exposure feels heavy now. Because it's not just about you. It's about those who hid in your shadow, feeding off your light while stabbing you with a smile. The shame that now surrounds them isn't imposed. It's energetic. The field around you has been cleansed, and the frequencies vibrating in falsehood were automatically expelled. You didn't have to ask for justice. Justice was already coming, carrying receipts, dates, looks, unspoken words, malicious silences. Every gesture was recorded by a justice that never forgets. You were the mirror, the one who reflected their dirt without uttering a single word. And now they are disgusted, not with you, but with what they saw reflected. The scheme built against you wasn't just an injustice. It was a collective spiritual test. Their intention was to destroy you, but God's purpose was far greater. It was to separate, to reveal frequencies, to show who carries light and who merely lives off the shadow of others. When your name was dragged through the mud, the atmosphere split into two camps: those who discern through the soul and those who react through impulse. People who had known you for years doubted you in minutes. People who claimed to love your energy vanished as soon as the mood shifted. It was never about you. It was about who they always were and could no longer hide. God permitted that moment not to humiliate you, but to cleanse the environment. When the lie became popular, the truth became silent. And it was in that silence that heaven began to act. Because the noise of scandal exposes those who operate only within the frequency of gossip, envy, and moral superiority. People were being tested, not with blessings, but with your pain. It was as if heaven said, "Let's see who can still recognize the light, even when it's covered in mud." And there were few, very few. But they were true, and those few are proof that the frame, as painful as it was, served as a divine filter. You no longer need to worry about who abandoned, judged, or distorted you. They've already judged themselves with their own reactions. Now that the truth has appeared, Shame has settled in. Not just public shame, but spiritual. Because their spirits know they failed. And what sickens them today is not what they did to you, but what they exposed about themselves. The exposure didn't come just to restore your name. It came to reorganize atmospheres. Your energy no longer accepts crooked alliances, self-serving presences, or false affection. Your frequency was raised, and with it, everything vibrating outside the truth was naturally expelled. You didn't cut anyone off. Your vibration did it for you. The season of blending is over. The scandal divided, and truth has reorganized everything. Those who remain have purpose. Those who left served as contrast. What matters is this: you survived the frequency test, and now you carry a spiritual armor that cannot be broken. When they began to accuse you, they expected a reaction. They wanted chaos. They wanted you to explode, to scream, to justify yourself, so they could say, "See, they really are unstable." But you didn't give them the show they wanted. You gave them silence. You gave them calm. You gave them time. And that's exactly what destroyed them. Your strength wasn't loud. It was disciplined. You endured piercing looks, fake smiles, hidden judgments, malicious insinuations, and you kept going. They mistook your restraint for weakness. They thought your silence was fear. But it wasn't fear. It was wisdom. You knew that those who respond too quickly hand over their soul for lies to dance with. So you waited. Not passively, but with faith, because you understood something many don't. Truth doesn't need defense. It needs time. And that time has come. Now each accusation has lost its weight. Each attack its logic. What once sounded like argument now reeks of shame. The resistance you showed wasn't ordinary. It was spiritual. It was the protection of one who knows that divine justice doesn't come through human hands. While they plotted more lies, you planted consistency. While they mocked, you stood firm. And today, that consistency has become a fortress. What was once slander is now silent confession. They can no longer bear to hear your name, not because they hate you, but because your presence is proof. You never had to speak. Every action of yours screamed louder than any justification. And now, those who tried to dim your light are hiding from their own darkness. It's overwhelming for them to see someone who survived everything without retaliation. They wanted to see you like them, reactive, explosive, unstable. But you chose the hardest path, silent resistance. And now that choice has become authority. Your posture has become judgment. Your peace has become justice. You weren't saved by explanation. You were saved by coherence. Heaven doesn't need your defense when you have integrity. And that was the lesson. Truth doesn't need a stage. It needs roots. Now that everything has come to light, your endurance isn't just a testament of survival. It's proof that you were right all along. And that time, aligned with God, is the best lawyer there is. Lies age poorly. In the beginning, they're convincing, even charming. They use calm voices, confident looks, rehearsed speech. But over time, they lose control. Because lying requires maintenance, constant upkeep, adjustments, protection. And those who lie grow tired. Tired of repeating, tired of covering up, tired of sustaining what was never real. Meanwhile, truth remains. Invisible sometimes, ignored even, but intact. And you, chosen one, were the guardian of that truth, even when it seemed fragile. You didn't have to prove anything. You just had to keep existing. Your endurance alone was enough to make everything crumble. Now truth is no longer a whisper. It's a loud verdict. It's no longer just clearing your name. It's exposing every piece of the structure they built over you. And the worst part? It's not merely that people lied about you. It's that so many applauded those lies. And now they're having to watch the public collapse of the illusion they sustained. That's why there's so much discomfort in the air now. It's not just guilt. It's existential disgust. Those who aligned with the wrong narrative are now trying to recalibrate their own conscience. Because while they saw you as the problem, the real cancer was growing behind the stage, well-dressed, well-applauded. The judgment now isn't just moral. It's vibrational. People who once mocked you can't even stay near the ones who started the lie. They call it intuition. But it's deeper than that. It's energy correcting itself. The lie contaminated environments, broke friendships, fed egos. And now the universe is cleansing it all. See, you didn't need to retaliate. Your silence did it for you. Every time you chose not to respond, heaven took note. Another proof of integrity. While they wrote a false script, you walked a straight line. And now their script has turned into a public confession. The words they used to wound you have returned as echoes, echoes now caught in reverse. It wasn't you who fell. It was they who revealed themselves. It wasn't you who lost. It was their masks that lost adhesion. And no matter how many filters they try to apply, decay can no longer be camouflaged. What hurts them most now? Not that you're clean, but that you're alive, at peace, whole. They expected you to be broken, hidden, silenced. But your continuity disturbs them more than any scream could. Because it says, you failed. And the universe insists on reminding them of that through every unfolding of their lives. Truth has its own timing, but when it arrives, it rearranges everything. Those who thought they were on top realize they climbed on the back of someone innocent, and now they descend, stripped of honor, control, and dignity. You were the target, but you became the verdict. People can feel it in the air. It's as if the world turned upside down, and it did. The masks have fallen, the stage is dismantled, and what remains are wide eyes, trembling hands, and guilt that can't even form words. Those who accused you so confidently can barely finish a sentence now. Those who mocked with delight lower their heads in your silence. You no longer need to explain yourself. Your energy does it for you. And it's cleaner, stronger, and more respected than ever. They wanted you forgotten. But your pain became testimony. Your strength became a reference. And your peace became a spiritual witness. Because everyone saw, everyone remembers, and even those too proud to admit it. They feel deep in their chest the weight of what they did to you. We've reached the end of this journey. But the truth is, it doesn't end here. It's only beginning, with greater awareness. Because now, after everything, the exposure, the pain, the silence, the endurance, you understand. You understand it was never an ordinary battle. It was a spiritual trial, a sacred separation, a process that looked like injustice, but was soaked in purpose. You weren't accused because you were guilty. You were accused because you were true. And truth, when it refuses to bow, makes people uncomfortable. When it walks among masks, it terrifies them. And that's why they wanted you silenced. That's why they wanted you erased. Because your integrity was a constant reminder of what they could never sustain on their own. The lie was the stage, but you were the mirror. A reflection that revealed more than appearances. You showed essence. And that's why they needed to break the mirror before everyone saw what was behind the curtain. But spiritual mirrors don't break. They reveal, even in silence. Now you carry not only the pain of betrayal, but the honor of being tested. Because not everyone survives a setup without losing their essence. You did. And you kept your peace. You kept your character. You kept your focus, and heaven uses that as a seal. Resistance without losing truth. The collective judgment unfolding now isn't just social, it's energetic, spiritual. People are reevaluating alliances, reconsidering who they supported, feeling the weight of what they did, through silence or through chorus. And even if they never ask forgiveness, they're already paying, in conscience. They already taste the bitterness of having aligned with darkness out of convenience. You no longer need to prove anything. The story has already been told, and now it's being reread by all, only this time with eyes wide open. Those who mocked now avert their gaze. Those who accused now keep quiet, because they understand that time itself stood by your side, and time, chosen one, never loses a case. Your name, once buried, has blossomed. Your image, once distorted, has returned to its original form, clean, strong, untouchable. And your presence, which they tried to erase, now illuminates. Not because you imposed yourself, but because truth shined on its own, without caption, without spectacle, without scream. You are living proof that heaven doesn't need noise to deliver justice, that integrity is stronger than accusation, that silence carries more weight than scandal, that what's built with God can never be dismantled by human words. Now lift your head, not as someone who won an ego battle, but as one who has been spiritually recognized. Your victory isn't just personal, it's collective. Because every chosen soul who sees you now knows it's possible to endure, to overcome, to remain. You weren't just acquitted, you were crowned.